Hi to everybody and welcome. I'm Jeremy. I am the director of the honors program and put together this lecture series, Art and Politics lecture series. And I'm so excited to have so many of you here tonight. Thanks so much for being with us. The Art and Politics lecture series is a series that tries to ask urgent questions about art, politics, the relation between them in this very urgent time that we are living in, where we're, as we speak, suffering through a whole panoply of crises. A crisis of the environment, a crisis of healthcare, a crisis of the economy, a crisis of racial justice, a whole lot of crises. And it's an important time to be alive and to be thinking and to be learning. And I'm so excited to be here tonight with everyone here. Without too much further ado, I'm going to turn it over to our lecturer. And I'm very, very excited to have Chris Graves here with us. Chris is an accomplished photographer who you may have just seen has his photograph of the memorial that was taken back by Black Lives Matter is on the cover of the most recent National Geographic, for one, and the Year in Pictures. But beyond his recent project, which he'll talk to us some about, Chris is going to tell us a lot about kind of what he's up to, but he's worked on several projects relating to photographing scenes that in which occurred the history of race and racism in this country. And he has a number of published works, including A Bleak Reality, which photographs scenes of the murder of Black young people by police, not just Black young people, actually Black people. And we are just so glad to have you here with us tonight, Chris. I'm going to hand it off to you. Thank you.
Well, thanks. Thank you so much for having me. And thanks for being here on a Friday night. I guess we can't really go out many places. So thank you for being with us. My name is Chris Graves, and I'm a photographer and artist and publisher and some other stuff from Queens, New York. And I live in Queens now. I live in Long Island City. This is me from Queens. I started to get involved with photography in high school. I told my parents I wanted to be a photographer because I don't think I actually have to even tell them this, but I was decent at school, but I wasn't interested in any of the subjects that I was learning. Like, we learned like science and history and English and all these things that I was like, how could I have a career? And I don't want to have a career in this and do this for my whole life. So I was always interested in the art classes in my school. And I realized that, maybe you couldn't be an artist for a living because that's probably too difficult. So, or probably impossible, actually. Impossible is probably the right word. And photography seemed like the only art form where I could actually make a living off of independently. Like, with film or video, you have to have other people around. So I was like, what can I do by myself to kind of make a living? So I started to get into photography. Luckily, my high school had a dark room, so I started to mess around with things like this in the dark room, photographing friends and stuff throughout school, which is cool because now I have all this recorded record of my friends. When I got to school at Purchase, this is not my photograph, but when I got to, I went to Purchase College and I graduated in 2004. When I started in 2000, it's a conservatory school, so they pretty much don't let you take a photography class the first year. I had to take all these core classes, but to sneak by that, in my second semester, I took a photojournalism class with a bunch of photography seniors actually, and learned a lot from the classmates and the professor. He ended up being the only Black professor I ever had, and then the only Black photography professor I ever had in school, but I only went to one school. So I don't have a master's degree, I just have the undergrad. But anyway, I learned about photographers like Gordon Parks, whose photograph is here, one of the most famous Black photographers of all time from the throughout the entire 1900s, pretty much. I learned about the work of Eugene Smith in that photojournalism class as well, and really love this idea of photojournalism. I was terrible at photojournalism though, so I kind of never felt comfortable on the street making good scenes. I never made one good photojournalistic photograph, I feel at this point. I also got into the work of George Tice, who is a photographer from, I think he's from New Jersey. He was making up most of his work, his urban landscapes in New Jersey and New York City over the course of the last 50 years. He is still alive. He's still making some great work. And I then, later in college, I started to get into the work of some conceptual artists like Hiroshi Sugimoto here and his theater series, as well as like these. I remember going to the MoMA in 2003 and seeing this enormous print. It must have been 120 inches wide. Andres Gursky, this picture here, and it just opened up my mind to a different level of like what you could do with the photograph in a way, especially to see it in a museum. Back to college, I'm just like kind of messing around, making photographs and learning how to be in the darkroom, all black and white color darkroom for like 4 years straight. Did a little bit of color work in college, but I was terrible at that in the darkroom. So that's why I started to do digital pretty early. In like 2002, I was starting to work with a digital camera, or sorry, digital printing, not a digital camera. Digital cameras in 2002 were trash. So I started to mess around in the studio with friends who would let me. I mean, it's my friend Terry, who's like, I probably have to speed this all up. But yeah, I was trying to play around in the studio, just trying to get familiar with lighting. And with that familiarity, I started to, my parents paid for my undergrad. They paid for the room and board, but not much of the food and the extras. So I had to find a way to make extra money to support myself and my whatever else I wanted to buy, like photo books or darkroom chemicals and stuff like that. So for all of college, I was just taking on tiny freelance jobs for like $20, $30, $100, photographing. Purchase College is like a conservatory school, so I was photographing actors, actresses, dancers, musicians, photographing these dance performances on film with pushing ISO 400 film to 3200 and seeing what would happen. I mean, just playing around, doing the same thing with doing theater posters for friends. And then I got out of college and came back to Queens and started to photograph the landscape, this changing landscape of Western Queens, which was just being gentrified, or I mean, not even gentrified, just built from almost nothing. So came back, was on a bike for some years. I still am riding this bike around these same neighborhoods, photographing a lot. And yeah, so this was pretty much my, this is the first work I did after college, just Queens work. And it pretty much continues. So this is like I was photographing this for some remembrance because none of these scenes stay the same. And in this city, everything changes like over and over and over again. So nothing here still exists this way. They've just kept changing and being built and rebuilt. If you guys have any questions, please put them in the chat. I will answer every question that you have. It may be a 2-line response, but I will answer every question if I have enough time. So I've been photographing around Queens, photographing the gentrification, the displacement, architecturally for the most part. I do a lot of portraiture as well, but I keep it semi-separate when I'm on the street pretty much because I only photograph people I know. So that's usually in the studio. At the same time, I started this is like 2005. I started a website named nyfineart.com where it's pretty much a gallery site for 30 artists at a time that I was familiar with. A lot of people from Purchase and a lot of people that I met outside of school, just like at gallery openings when people used to actually attend gallery openings in New York City. Because there was free wine then. Now there's no free wine, so why would you go to a gallery? I don't get it. Anyway, so started this website and had it running for about 2 or 3 years actually. And after having the website up and people really loving that, I decided to rent out gallery space like a fool and start putting together these large group shows with like 18, 20 artists. And we got these huge crowds. We had so many, I don't know if any of you guys were at these, but they were packed. I mean, like we could not fit people in this space. People had to wait downstairs in the street to get into the elevator. And it felt, I mean, I never saw that. I never saw the line because I was always in the gallery smushed, trying to like talk to people. So it was a fun way to like start my art career in New York City, just like being totally engulfed with new faces all the time. I met a lot of friends that way, that people are still friends. 2006-07, I started to want to learn how to make a portrait because I still didn't I'm still trying to learn a lot now, but then I was really terrible. So I took out a 4 or 5 view camera from a closet and started to make photographs of friends and family over the course of the winter because I couldn't be on the bike. It was too cold. So in the wintertime, I just had people come over to my bedroom with a gray sheet on the wall and photograph everyone that I could. So I ended up photographing about 75, 80 friends and family members, called it extended family, just trying to learn how to make a nice portrait. As you can see, like you can see from the eyeballs that it's like one softbox and one harsh light on one side. Every single photograph was like made the same way. It's funny now, you can see it in the eyes all the time, but pretty basic stuff. But it was great to have this as a record for you know, a record of my friends. Now this is now 15, 14, oh my God, 14 years ago. Oh my God. And in 2007, also after doing that series in the winter, I started working at the Guggenheim Museum, photographing my main job at the Guggenheim was photographing the collection. I started in February 2007 and stopped in February 2018. So I was there for 11 years, actually. My main job was photographing the collection. So, you know, all the artwork that came into the space. I think my quota was photographing like 500 pieces of art a year or something like that, which doesn't seem like much, but I wasn't allowed to touch anything. So I would have to wait for art handlers to give me work to photo. Anyway, it's like art handlers are like gods to me. They always have helped me out. I was also responsible for photographing like the artists that came through the museum. Like this dude's name is Maurizio Catalan. He's the person that put the banana on the wall at Art Basel, and he also made that golden toilet behind him. He also made this Pinocchio that floats upside down in water at the museum. Ridiculous. And anyway, so yeah. So it's photographing artists, photographing people that worked at the museum, headshots and portraits for people, making exhibition views of the shows, art handling and art process work, things that were never taken out of boxes for like 50 years were being going on display and trying to figure out how they worked, trying not to burn a room. I mean, I remember this, I could feel this heat from like 20 feet away. This thing was so hot. I think it's Donald Judd or somebody like that. I was also at the museum late nights all the time, photographing events and all sorts of stuff. I mean, this was daytime, of course, but like photographed a bird. Why do we have they did, museums do a lot of stuff that we just don't see because they're doing it so fast that you can't keep up with the amount of work they're doing. And I had to keep up because I was responsible for like photographing all of it. And yeah, it was a lot of work. I also photographed conservation artists and conservation photography in general. Like this is a Manet painting that was going, she's pretty much taking off a varnish with the Q-tip, a specialized Q-tip. And it took her years to do this. I mean, like you can see that this would just take a long time to not mess this painting up. And she did a great job, Jillian. She's a really great conservator. Also had some fun, like photographing. This became a subway poster. I think this was on the front cover of some magazine named Sculpture Magazine, which is definitely defunct now. It was probably defunct like 3 months after that photograph was made. I was out at the museum like for installation process work where I would, you know, you can't see it here, but there's people hanging from these cars, inside the cars, installing these lights and stuff like that. So I was responsible for photographing all that stuff at night. This artist had everybody wear a headlamp and turned off all the lights in the museum. So it was lit only by the people that walked around the space. This artist put $100,000 in dollar bills in the gallery, and a huge space. I can't actually believe that he did this, but it was a great way for insurance to get your $100,000 after winning a $100,000 prize. I think it's one of the smartest things I've ever seen. He then got sued because somebody did it before he did it. Anyway, so in that same time period, I think time is weird for me. I don't really care about years like that. I don't care about, anyway, 2009, I opened a gallery with my cousin, Gravel, and we got to do whatever we wanted. He was running his business from the back. And he was also like the manager of the space while I was the artist liaison. And we just had photography and works on paper shows for about 2.5 years. This was in Dumbo. I called it Chris Graves Projects, or we called it Chris Graves Projects. And we just did our own programming for like 2.5 years, figuring it out. And having shows, making books. I made this book with a friend, Sergio Fernandez, and Laura McPhee, who's the photographer. She teaches at Massachusetts College of Art. We made this 16 by 20 inch book. So this is kind of this is the first book I ever made, this 16 by 20 inch book actually. And I did a lot of research, going to Strand for weeks at a time and learning everything about who made books, what papers they were using, and like everything else. And I learned a lot from this experience. And I realized that I never wanted to make a 16 by 20 inch book again. It was very expensive, very, very expensive. We still have a few, but my God, I'm so glad I didn't have to pay for that. I mean, God, so glad. Anyhow, so I had some shows at the space, a bunch, I think about 25 solo shows. We did a few art fairs. I realized really early that I did not want to be a gallerist. I did not want to call people to get them to buy thousands of dollars worth of art to keep my doors open. I felt like that was just a losing venture. This is my cousin, and this is my style choices in 2011. So I realized that I wanted to go into something different, get art into people's homes that could actually afford it. So that was books. And the first book I made for myself was called Permanence. And I think we did this all with a Kickstarter campaign. Me and like two or three designers worked on this, and a bunch of friends doing drawings for me. And we made this book named Permanence, which was pretty much about the first 10 years of being out of college making work. We're about 8 years out of college. Places that I probably would never see again. And I wanted to call it Permanence because I had this lasting memory from these places. So I was able to travel a lot because the Guggenheim gave me medical insurance. They didn't give me much money, but they they gave me medical and a lot of time off. So I took all of that time off and went to everywhere I could. Like I visited friends in Japan and UK, you know, Taos, New Mexico, Montreal, everywhere I had people. This is my dad. Well, actually, my dad makes remote controls. I have his remotes. He makes these Zoom remotes actually, which is really cool. So I can like take a snapshot or something like that, and it will just like do it. Anyway, so he was making these remote controls my whole life. This is his business, and I actually did this for a bit after college too, soldering and desoldering remotes. And I realized really quickly that I did not want to do this for a living. But yeah, that was my first pretty much job after college actually. And yeah, this is a book named Permanence. That was 2012. And 2013, after going to Iceland, I think 3 or 4 times, a friend of mine, Terry Gerard, he went to Iceland and made these awesome photographs. And I wanted to go to make even better photographs. I was like super jealous of his photographs, and I wanted to go and make like my own version of Iceland. So I took 3 road trips around Iceland. One of those with my now wife, one of those with my friend Dan Salemi, who I work with on books now, and one with like a group of people. I actually did a tour. I had like 2 cars full of people, 8 people driving around Iceland for like 12 days or something like that, which was a lot of fun. And I made this work named Discovered Missing. And the idea behind this work was to make Iceland accessible for people. I mean, at this point, and still, Iceland's a pretty cheap country to get to, especially because it's nonstop from New York for like $500 or $600. And rental cars are like $30 a day. And I wanted to make photographs that you could see all these scenes by just driving around this one ring road. It's about 1,400 miles long or something like that. And you could do it in 7 or 8 days, easy, and see all these different landscapes. And I was just interested in like, if my parents wanted to see it, they could look at this book and say, I want to see that thing in Iceland, and they wouldn't have to climb a mountain to see it. So that's the reason I wanted to work on this project. Accessible beauty pretty much is what I should have called it or something. I don't know. But yeah, we made that book, and we can talk about bookmaking a little bit later also, since now I'm just publishing so many books. I think we're up to, anyway, we'll talk about that in a minute. I actually went there to see the Northern Lights. And everything else was a bonus pretty much, because I just wanted to see this. And it's rare. I mean, we saw it only this 1 or 2 times when we were there. Each trip we saw it once or twice, and this was like a glorious night. I mean, we got really lucky and with a really great view. I had a show downtown at this place named Pocket Utopia, which is run by a woman named Austin Thomas, who now, I think she's at FIT. And the only way I could afford to make the show, because I had $0, and I wanted to make these big Gursky style prints. I wanted my 40 by 80 inch prints. That on the left side, that's a 40 by 80, and I think there's 3 in this gallery space. The cost was probably $700 or $800 to make these things, and I pre-sold the whole show at cost so that I could make it. I mean, that's how I produced this whole show. And I realized after that that's what I should do to make shows, like pre-sell it at cheap, and then you don't have to pay for your exhibition. I think that was good for me to learn early on. Around the same time as that show, I started to think about like how many, this is around 2014, a lot of Black men were being killed on camera by police officers, or like these kind of phone footage videos of people being shot in the back and all this. And I was getting like really annoyed and just maddened by this whole situation. And I wanted to make a project that put Black men into a different light. So I called it Testament Project, and I wanted to fill the spaces with color that was chosen by the men, not anyway, that's what I did. So I pretty much surrounded people with, you can see the lights in my house anyway, they're the same lights, just different bulbs. I would surround the subject with 4 different color changing LED light bulbs. I would sit for them where I was going to photograph them. They would use an app to work on their color combinations, and then we'd switch places and I'd photograph them with the color that they chose for themselves. Besides this part of the series, which was mainly portraiture, we also did we did a lot of written content. We made some books that had a lot of written work within, and we also did some video pieces. And I'm just thankful that people wanted to like sit for me and talk to me about their like problems with discrimination in America and around the world. I mean, it wasn't only an American project. So yeah, this is the first year of this. I did Men, and I made this book in collaboration with Blue Sky Gallery out in Portland, Oregon, where I now am on the board for it because, you know, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And the next year I decided to photograph women, and I changed only two things changed. The background went from black to white so that all the color would just like tons of color would be in the scenes. They were more vibrant. The lights got a little bit better, brighter, and had more color definition. So, you know, technology changes year by year, and that's what I was working with, just the changing technology. I mean, these lights are really cheap, but I was able to make some really great photographs with them, and I'm really still happy with this work. These whole shoots, I mean, I photographed about 16 to 20 people each time, the men and the women. And I think I did it over the course of like 2 or 3 weeks each time, and then just worked on the photographs, sent the photographs to the models, had them choose which ones they liked best. And those are the ones that we used in the final project. So when you see like the bigger grids on the wall, they're chosen by the people that, you know, it was totally about agency. I wanted to give everybody their own agency in the work. This is the show at Blue Sky Gallery in Portland. They have a huge space. We have a huge space, I should say, because I'm on the board. We have a huge space, and you should apply for shows because we have a free submission policy. So there you go with that. I actually wanted to fill the, because Portland's super white. It's like 95% white and getting whiter actually by the day. I wanted to fill the space with just black faces, and I was happy with that. I also showed this work early on in a Norte Mar, a gallery in Brooklyn, where I was able to show this video piece as well, like this 21-minute video piece. You can see this on my website. This is the first time I showed, this is my sister in pink here. And I just wanted to make another huge print. I put it on foam. It was like super cheap to make, and you know, it came out well. It got damaged instantly, but you know, it didn't matter. It was so pink, it didn't matter. I had this show at Bryn Mawr College, which was in their library at school, their school library, and it was great to have all these black women and men in the space, because actually black people, when Bryn Mawr College opened in Pennsylvania, they did not allow black people to be at the school at all. So it was really great to fill the space with black faces. Did some art fairs with my galler, Sasha Wolf. This was an art on paper fair. This was at Massachusetts College of Art, where I started, like, these grid concepts were really cool. I really like doing these grids because it just filled the space with color. This was in the University of Arizona. And I got this show pretty much because I emailed randomly the curator of the space and said, I love your space. I would love to have a show with you. If you have space, well, I just said that. I said, I love your space. I'd like to show you work. Can I send you a copy of my book? She emailed me back I emailed about 1 a.m. She emailed me back the next morning and said, we'd love to find space to show you. We can't give you any money or pay you for this, but if you want to show here, then you can. And I was like, okay, well, I can make that work. And, you know, and the way to make that work with 80 prints on one wall was pretty much to print them on what I call Epson Enchanted Matte, which is enhanced matte paper. It's like one of the cheapest papers you can buy, but doesn't glare with light. Like, light does not glare off of it. It has a great black point, which is good for a matte paper, and it stays on the wall when you put some tape in the corners. So it was like, it fit all those things. I could put it in a box. I put them in like just 2 padded boxes. It costs nothing to ship it, and they just rip up the prints after the show, send me a photograph of the ripped prints, and we're good. I don't need to see the prints again. This is also a place where I got to show this really large video installation of this Testament Project video that also exists on the website if you want to see it and hear it. That turned into some freelance job, well, just this one freelance job with these lights, working with Huffington Post last year. We're flipping around in years a lot, but I'm sorry about that. Yeah, so I worked on this project with Huffington Post, where I was photographing these activists / entertainers pretty much. And I'm still making portraits now, a little bit slower with these lights, but still kind of working on figuring out what I can do differently with this kind of situation in light. freelance wise, I've been photographing a lot of landscape architecture work in this city. Um, this is one of my first jobs. It was called Bronx Contours, and the idea was to photograph what makes the Bronx different than every other borough. Specifically, Brooklyn, Queens, and Manhattan were leveled out. The streets were leveled to make a gridded street system, and in the Bronx, they didn't do that. There was too many hills. There was a lot of poor people, so they didn't want to like actually do that to the Bronx. So all the Bronx is these hills and like curves and all this. And this is all, most of this is the South Bronx, where like my dad's family is from. So I was semi-familiar with some of these places, but it was great to walk around. The only reason I mean, I got paid $500 to do this job, and I was still working at the Guggenheim. Most of the freelance work that you'll see, almost all the freelance work you'll see, is me having a day job and taking on all these jobs on weekends. So just working all the time. I mean, when I ran the gallery, I was working weekends at the gallery when I worked at this Guggenheim. And then when I didn't have the gallery anymore, I was doing this like freelance work on weekends as much as possible. This is actually the Joker staircase. I don't know if you've seen that Joker movie poster where he's like dancing on stairs, but this is that staircase from the top. And yeah, the Bronx is just a weird place. I did this over one day because I had a day job. I walked about 24 miles from South Bronx to Riverdale, River something. I forgot. I think it's Riverdale. I don't know what that neighborhood's called actually. Somebody needs to scream that out later. Just put in the comments. I think it's Riverdale. Anyway.
Yeah, Riverdale, I think.
Yeah, a long ass walk, and it was a great day. But you know, my feet hurt, but I did make $500, so it was cool. Anyway, so the jobs like that led me to like photographing like these CubeSmart locations, which were like, you know, there's like I think that these buildings are, well, actually I won't talk bad about this because they're really good to me and they're amazing buildings. They're beautiful. The blue and red is the best color I've ever seen, and I'll move on. I also photographed every police precinct in New York City for a place named for a website named Urban Omnibus. So I went around for 5 weekends photographing all 77 police precincts for a story about policing in New York City. That was fun. Now I know where every police precinct is in every borough. So I have that knowledge if anybody ever needs it. Around the same time, I got this, I started to work with Vanity Fair on this project named Oblique Reality. Well, I called it Oblique Reality. I don't know what they call it, nothing, but I called it Oblique Reality, and it was pretty much scenes where 8 people, black men, were murdered by police officers in public. And I went around. This was in Ferguson. Michael Brown. We designed a book. My friend Luke Abiol, who I went to purchase with, designed this book for me, and I had a writer named Thomas Chatterton Williams help me with the writing sections of the book. He helps me out a lot. We're good buddies. He's now getting popular for some funny ass things, so it's pretty cool. But I went around the country just photographing these scenes, about 8 scenes over the course of 3 weekends, because I still had a day job. And I wanted to show the normalcy of these scenes. These are places that we pass on a daily basis. These are not abnormal, like dangerous locales. These are normal places, and people are getting murdered here. And I just wanted to bring that back to home, that this is a problem. Yeah, so that was this thing. This is Tamar, like where Tamar Rice was killed by police officers outside of Cleveland, or in Cleveland. I don't know if it's in or outside of. I then started showing the work together sometimes when I was allowed. So I'd show the portraits on one wall and have an unlit wall of the murder scenes, pretty much as a kind of plus and a minus in these gallery spaces. I also hung these pretty low to the ground, like maybe 2.5 feet above the ground. They look tiny in this. This space was so huge, kind of. I mean, not huge, but these are 30 by 40 inch prints. They look so tiny. But anyway, I think that Oblique Reality job led me to working with Google and a nonprofit organization named the Equal Justice Initiative, who was working on a project named Lynching in America. And they did this research and found where the 4,000 plus lynchings occurred. They now have a museum in Montgomery, Alabama, that I think is one of the most powerful places I've ever been. And they had me fly to, it was so weird. I mean, I was in New Orleans for my cousin's bachelor party, and they want me to fly. I had to fly to LA and then fly back to New Orleans to drive to Mississippi to make the photographs in this neighborhood named Ellisville. This is all in like 3 days. And I flew to Ellisville, well, went to Ellisville, Mississippi, and photographed where a black man in 1919 was murdered on this tree, or pretty much a planned lynching on this tree. They put out an ad in the newspaper. They had 10,000 people arrive to this 200-person town or 2,000-person town and just like be there for this lynching and, crazy, crazy stuff. I then went out to LA, or went to LA before this, whatever, and photographed his descendant, the person who died on that tree, his descendants, Tarabu and Mamie Kirkland. Mamie, when I was photographing her and hearing her stories, she was about 108. She was 108 in these photographs. She died earlier this year, but it was amazing to just see an 108-year-old like walking, talking, and like just being so vibrant as ever. And I was like, damn, I hope I have that when I'm 100. I'll take that at 70, and at 108 is like just some other like magic. And she deserved it because she had to fight a lot in her life to kind of escape the South alive. She had to stop in 4 or 5 different cities with her family to kind of get away from trouble. So her life was long and hard, but she made it work for herself. I now work with Pace Gallery on a lot of Pace Gallery, which is a gallery in New York and London and everywhere. They have so many Pace galleries, but this was one of my first jobs with them. I was photographing Maya Lin's exhibition at the Hudson River Museum in Yonkers. Actually, I didn't know that they were going to make a book of this work. I just was photographing. This is me in the summertime when I photograph artwork. I was just around the gallery, this museum, for like 5 or 6 weeks making photographs, and then they decided to make it into a book. Then they shipped me the book out of nowhere, and I was like, wow, you made it into a book. That's really cool. And they just used all my photographs from this like very huge installation that they were putting together and made it into a book. I was really happy about that. That was fun. I didn't have to do any work on this book, so it's like the best book. When you don't have to like do every piece of the work on books as a publisher, it feels like a dream when you get something made and you didn't have to do it yourself. And that leads me to like actually publishing. I started to publish other people's books in 2015, early 2015, minus that Laura McPhee book from like 2009. And I wanted them to be affordable. So pretty much what we did was when I say we, I usually mean just me, but like I decided to start a publishing company where we would make, books for people. Some were expensive, some were not, but most of them were $40 and under to purchase. I wanted everybody to be able to purchase artwork and have it in their homes. We made this book last year with Ruben Natal San Miguel, named Harlem, where he's photographing Harlem. I mean, he's been photographing Harlem for 20 years. Maybe I know some of you already know Ruben and his work. We are a limited edition press, so everything pretty much sells out within a year and a half. I think we made 300 of these and they were gone. Maybe we made 2. I don't even know how many we made. Probably 250, and they were gone within 3 months. It was really stupid. We should have made more books. It was such a great project. We're going to do something again with Ruben soon, so you can stay tuned for that. We work with an artist named Raina Young on a project named The Rugs Topography. I think because I don't have too much time left, I'm just going to run through and just show you some books and tell you the names, and you can go check them out on the website to see like what they're about, because I can talk about these books forever. I do this series of books named Lost. This is the first series named Lost 1. And it was 10 photographers photographing 10 cities around the world. This is by a photographer named Zora J. Murph, who everybody should know also. And he was photographing North Omaha, Nebraska, a red line district in the city where Black people were forced to live and what that neighborhood looked like and felt like. The next year, which was last year, I did this project Lost 2, which was 20 photographers photographing 20 places around the world, not specific to cities. On top is a book named Toronto by a now Guggenheim winner, Jun Lee, who just got that award this year. So there is some positivity in this world in 2020. Not so much, but a little bit. Yeah, we worked with a bunch of artists. It was really great to work with all those artists. I don't know if it's smart to work with 20 artists at the same time to do anything, but it was a fun project. This was Los Angeles by Aline Smithson. The next year, was that this year? Damn, I do a lot of books. Last year we made 28 books. This year we cut it down to 18. And next year we hopefully cut that down to just a little bit. Like, I keep saying that, but I know that I'll do another 20 books next year. It's just gonna happen. We made this book named On Death, which was pretty much 46 artists' ideas of death with one photograph. So we had an open call for this and then got about, I don't know, 800 submissions or something like that, and chose 45 or 46 to be in the book. Um, this book we still have a few of. That was made later last year. This book is named Wig Heavier Than a Boot, with a photographer named David Johnson and a poet and the model in all the photographs named Philip Matthews, who's writing his poetry as himself and an alter ego, and being photographed by David in his wig heavier than a boot. This is a project that I've been working on with a photographer named Greg Evans. He's at FIT also. He works at FIT and Fashion Institute of Technology. I know all of you know that, but anyway. So every year, or mainly every year, we make this book series named The Setting Sun, which is a series of the project, like the photographs that he's made over the last year, and is thinking about and figuring out like all this waste, this human waste is pretty much what it usually is all these things that we just kind of go through. He could probably explain this book way better than I can, but I love the books and I love that he trusts me to make them with him. Made a book with a photographer named Isaac Diggs, who actually teaches at SVA. This is named Middle Distance, or the Anxiety of Influence, Photographs from Los Angeles. And this is, I mean, I think this book is awesome. It's a different take on LA than any other book that I've seen. And it gives you a different scenery. It shows you these kind of street scenes that may seem normal in a sense, but they are very Los Angeles. I mean, everything here usually doesn't exist anywhere else. We then did another set this year named Lost 3, where we did an open call and got Alina Van Ryzen's book from Bryn Mawr College, which brings that back to like a full circle of me having an exhibition there. And yeah, so Alina made this project about her years at an all-women's college, and I thought that was like super different. Like not many people are photographing this. So we were really happy to make this into a project, and it sold really well. I mean, we make only like 250 each of these loft books, or maybe 250 or 300, and I can look now and see, we probably have like 10 or 15 left, which is unfortunate because this year has been weird because we have not been at a table yet. I mean, we've been selling purely online, which is different for me than ever before, because usually every month I'm at a book fair around the world, like London or Paris or New York or LA or Chicago or Alabama. I mean, anywhere. We're going for a lot of book fairs. So it was weird to change over this year to being like a internet bookseller. Very strange, but we had a decent year, so I cannot complain. We also work with this artist named Keely Yuyan, who's based out of Seattle, and he photographs a lot for National Geographic, and he also does his personal work, which is less journalistic. And this project in particular is about Chukotka, which is the northeastern section of Russia, where people are living amongst the landscape in a way that is different, very different than our normal lives. And he just shows us the scenery around that space. And you can see more pictures of that online. Another book that I didn't make enough of. I mean, those went. This is Nadia Nakorda's book. This is the first lost book that wasn't place-based. This is about immigration into America, and there's a bunch of different places within here, but usually suburban places. And it's about her two younger siblings growing up in America, pretty much. And it's like, taken over the course of this much time. And we have, I think I have no copies of that. I think that's now sold out. Unfortunately, you can only get that with the set now, which is funny. I like that kind of stuff. It doesn't really help sales, but like I like that you can only buy it with a set. Anyway, we also went back in time with a few of our books. One is about Afghanistan in the 60s before the revolution. That book is awesome. And this book is also great. This is by a professor of mine named Jed Devine, named New York Mostly on Sundays. And this is pretty much Tribeca, and it's pretty much 14th Street and below in the 70s, before people were actually around New York City. I mean, like these scenes are never this empty ever again. I mean, he was just photographing. I was happy that he let me make this. They were 810 view. He's making 810 view camera work, and he let me make them like 5 by 7 inches or not even 4 by 5 little prints in the book. Thank you, Jed, for letting me do that to your pictures. This year, we also made a book named Enough, which sold out way too quick. We made 300 or so of these. We have like 15 copies left that are all kind of damaged. I don't even have them on the website, like slight cover damages, and I'll sell them. If you want them, let me know, but they're never going on the website again. So if you want one of these, they're private. But this is a project about the black neighborhoods of New York City, mostly in Brooklyn. So he's walking around Brooklyn with his camera, making scenes in the sense of like Roy de Carava's work, kind of that just kind of striking street scenes that are not photojournalistic, I don't think, a little bit different than that. And they're paired with a poet's, they're paired with a poet named Dr. Jamila Lyscott, who is excellent, and it just flows this book so well. We're really happy about that. And now, this is all this year now. So we're also just finished making this book named Colonial Echo with a photographer and artist named Rochelle Mosman Solano. And this book this took a long time because we had to, there's two different papers, different end papers, printed end papers, all sorts of cool things in this book. And it came out beautifully. It's such an awesome book. It's pretty much her mother in most of these scenes. And yeah, anyway, I'll let you should check this out on the website if you have a chance and just kind of get into the story, but really beautiful book. We also made this book with Hannah Altman this year named Kavana. And this is fun too. We have a lot of fun. I have a lot of fun making books. We do a lot of them. I also started a press named Monolith Editions, which is working with artists of color to make their books. And this is called Remember the South by Frank Francis. And he's from South Carolina, lives in Queens. He's an amazing photographer, does a lot of still lifes based on his time in the South and what it feels like to be from the South, and using these like Black cultural references in the work in still life form. He also, like on the left side here, this is all Kool-Aid. He's found a way to make Kool-Aid look awesome in photographs, which is great. I am still doing my own work. Like I'm doing a few different projects that are going to come out next year, probably combined together in like a 2-book like box set of some sort. If I can find the funding for that, that would be really great. One of those books is right now named Privileged Mediocrity, and it deals with privileged mediocrity pretty much. It deals with American issues in the landscape, like racism in the landscape, kind of just weird parts of like discrimination. I'll let you kind of look at the photographs before I tell you. I don't want to explain my photographs. I'd love you to just look and see what I see within. But if you want to know anything about these, please ask me questions and I'll answer them to the best of my ability. We're also, with this project, I'm also dealing with infrastructure issues that are occurring in America, climate change stuff, and kind of the solace of the Black people. Gentrification for sure. This is Long Island City. And what else is there? Oh, this is out of place. This is part of our Lost series. Oh, Lost One. Look at these. These are all sold out. This was a project by Purchase Photography. I use Purchase people. I work with Purchase photographers a lot just because we have the same sensibilities kind of going out. When you go out of a school, you have the same sensibilities as that school kind of. So it's been easy for me to work with people from Purchase. This photographer's name is Jody Porwell. Amazing Instagram feed. Please follow him. Makes great work all the time. It was hard to pick 25 to put into a small book. A photographer named Luke Abiol, who's my homie, a great designer, a producer, and he's made this ode to San Francisco of his childhood, which is totally changed now, but he finds those pieces of San Francisco that were lost in the last 20 years. Both of these are sold out. So, and I made a book of Long Island City at that point, and that's sold out too. But there's still a few things from the Lost set. And now I just finished working with. Can you see my cursor? Can you see this cursor?
Yes.
This right here is Yoav. He's on the call, so you can give him some shit. He's using this 4.5U camera right in front. Yoav is my homie. We went down to with National Geographic. We went down to Richmond to make photographs of this from these like really volatile scenes happening down in Richmond this summer. And it's pretty much like paint on all these Confederate statues and monuments and like just destroying them was great. It was great to see all of the, 90% of what you're seeing is gone because they took all this stuff away, except for that big, large horse piece man, who's hopefully going soon. This is still there, this Confederate pyramid, which we had to scope this out, I think 2 or 3 times because it was just raining like like a lot in Richmond over the summer. Saw this guy do this live. That was fun. He just drove into the middle of the street, parked, and ran out of his car. Did this. 5 minutes later, I hope I was laughing right now. But like 5 minutes later, 2 women come and scrape it off. And then 5 minutes after that, he comes back and starts scraping off the Black Lives Matter. It was like this scene that was just so surreal. It was amazing. And to have a good friend to like and a photographer that also like Yoav, I'm talking about Yoav Haresh, he makes work in a similar fashion. Like we make work similarly. He's all black and white, but you know, but there are like we're talking about history in the landscape in a way that is, it was nice to be with him for this trip because, you know, we could just have those conversations until too late in the morning, I think. I mean, it was a lot of fun. It felt like college for sure. So yeah, this is my first job with National Geographic actually ever. And it came really late. I mean, I think I got a contract 2 days before we had to drive from Boston / Cape Cod to Richmond to do this work. And I'm glad that I had my buddy for that. And that's it. Let's talk now. I mean, I'm gonna start drinking, but like we can have a conversation. Does everybody,
yeah,
does everybody have like
fantastic.
does everybody have like a bottle with them that they
yeah, thank you so much, Chris. And I think we should just open the floor. Easiest way I know how to do this is just write the word stack in the chat if you want to get in line, just like I just did right now, to ask a question. I know Andy maybe wanted to ask the first question, had a question, but needs to type it in the chat, he told me. So I wanted to give him a chance to do that. And yeah, and I also usually jump in with the first question, both out of eagerness and also as like the self-sacrificial lamb to get people talking. So I guess I was really interested in the last thing you said about history in the landscape. Can you just say a little more what you mean by that?
Well, our country is pretty screwed up, so it's very easy to find what the problems are in our landscapes. I mean, within a mile, you're going to see some really screwed up stuff wherever you are, I think. So there's history in that. For me, I try not to overthink that history. Right now I'm working with a kind of racist history in America, or I was for, oh man, I'm sweating. Look at those like underarms. It's so crazy. You just sit in a chair and you just sweat. It's craziness. Anyway, so yeah, so history and landscape is just like, I've been lucky enough to not have to look too hard to find the terrible history in our landscapes. I mean, for the most part, racism was now, and then, you know, in the future, I'll be working with like, you know, maybe indigenous tribes to figure out what their situations are about. And it's everywhere. I mean, if you are in the landscape in America, you're going to find some crap that, you know, was bad. Like Central Park has a horrible history, or like the BQE has you can find it everywhere. So I think that it's just about what you want to make a project out of. I mean, that's actually, you know what? I don't even think about projects in that way. I just want to make the photographs of the screwed up stuff. And then hopefully at some point it all comes together to be something that people want to see. Maybe, I don't know. Actually, I don't do it for I do it for myself. So I don't know if I'm not a documentary photographer. I'm definitely making photographs of scenes that I think are just, oh my God, somebody else has to see this scene. And that's why I make the work. And it becomes a historic photograph just because, not my whole photographs is historic, but there's history in everything pretty much. I mean, you can find the history in everything. You just have to guide that to where it fits your kind of practice, you know? That I'll always answer a question with like no answer. Like, so that's just
no, that's one of my favorite. I'm from Chicago, I mentioned earlier, and like one of my favorite of those is one of the big boulevards in downtown Chicago is called Balbo Drive, and nobody knows why it's called that until you look it up. And it's named after Italo Balbo, who was the leader of the Italian fascist Air Force, who did a transatlantic flight, landed in Chicago, had a big party, left a little monument that's still on the lakeshore in Chicago, dedicated from Mussolini to the city of Chicago.
Oh yes.
And
yeah, that's so nice.
It's real good. And like just after that, he went to go bomb Ethiopia, and the drive is still named after him. So
Whoa.
uh,
That's awesome. Thanks for telling me that. Did anybody make a good photograph of it?
not that I've seen.
Yeah.
So Andy in the chat asks, you mentioned you worked in the Guggenheim and in galleries. How was the process from undergraduate to working in the industry? It's the transition. And then Jarvis and Sage are on stack after that.
Well, I don't see that as there's no progression there. It's like I got a job at the Guggenheim because a friend of mine saw, I was working at an art studio in Chelsea making $12.50 an hour with no medical insurance. And my friend was like, you probably should get a new job and you know how to photograph artwork. Even though I wasn't actually doing that in Chelsea, I was just a computer tech for the photographers. I was doing like color management, making CDs, and like scanning 8-10 negatives of like Louise Bourgeois sculptures and stuff like that. That was my job. And the Guggenheim job came up. A friend of mine told me I should apply. It was on like Hot Jobs or Media Beach, one of these like really not the best type of websites for finding a job. And it was there. I applied, and within a month, within 2 or 3 weeks, I got a call from my then like boss now, then before, and got the job. It was at $21.50 an hour in 2007. It got me medical insurance, retirement plan, and vacation time. That's why I took that job. I wasn't really concerned with like the Guggenheim. I don't really care about the institutions like that. I have no allegiance, or like they're all screwed up to me. I think they're all messy. So the process was interesting because you have to it's like the science of photography, photographing artwork. It's not it does take creativity, but there's definitely some, you have to use lighting in a certain way to make things look good. At least that's what I think. And it was an easy ass job. I mean, I thought it was easy. It was like I didn't have to think about it. I didn't have to be an artist at work because I just used the science of making those photographs happen. And along the way, those 11 years, I learned a lot about art because I was around terrible art, amazing art, great artists, horrendous artists. People stole from me. People like were really like happy to work with me. So like those things, those human interactions were the best part about working at the spaces. And I think that as long as you go into anything with like a little bit of skill, or at least, not even skill. I mean, I didn't know how to photograph a painting, but I lied on my resume and I got the job. So then I had to learn how to photograph a painting. I mean, that was how it went. Another question I'm not going to answer. So what's the next question?
Hello, everyone. Chris, thank you for a great presentation. Hey, how's it going? I'm from the School of Visual Arts. I'm actually the new director for diversity, equity, inclusion. So this is actually a great first event that I'm attending, and really blown away. To the left of me is actually my wife, who we're actually watching it on our screen over here. We actually live in Long Island, and a lot of things
Mr. Berry, what up?
Yeah, we're a little more east. We're out in Shirley. Yeah, so
okay, there's Black people in Shirley. I'm just
yes, we're here. Yes. I just want to say that some of the things that you talked about in regards to some landscapes or even some indigenous folk that we actually work with. We have the Shinnecock and the Unkeechug nations out here that definitely have some controversy in regards to the sign, the sign that they have right on 27, or we call was it Montauk Highway?
25, I forgot which one.
Sunrise Highway. That's really drawn some controversy. That would actually be something interesting to kind of like photograph. But also the redlining that we have out here, and the historical aspect of like Robert Moses and the redlining. Throughout Long Island. They talked about Long Island being one of the places you could do a really great sociological experiment because of the fact that everyone lives in these zip codes that have been historically segregated. So I think that might be some things I would definitely love to talk to you about, at another time. But I just want to say this is a really great presentation. And
thanks for listening. I mean, thanks for listening. I just keep talking, and then hopefully it sounds all right on your end.
Next was Sage.
Yeah, it's me. Well, first and foremost, I want to say you're cool as hell. Like, you're cool as hell. I'm sitting here and like listening to you talk, and I'm like, wow, that's kind of crazy. And I have no, it's kind of, it's not like sublime, but it's like beyond my expectation to how I can even process where I would go to get to where you are, if I'm trying to make sense. And so that leads into my question of,
Well, thank you.
well, yeah, definitely. But how, where did you think you started? Like, because you talked about like getting into a gallery for the first time and buying it out, and just how did you get the courage to start, really?
Well, I just kept making photographs and then trying, my first show was at like a little cafe on like Fifth Ave in Brooklyn, where I had like 8 11 by 14 inch frames I bought from like Light Impressions with 8 by 10 inch like matte boards cut already. And I put the images in there and had a show my dad drove me from Long Island to hang the show because I didn't know how to hang on brick. And he did all of that for me. And then that was the first show. So I think it was just like keep making photographs. At this point, I mean, shows are few and far between, I think. I mean, I don't have that many shows. I probably do probably have 1 or 2 shows per year. But I think that it's just consistency. The only thing, if you keep making work, people will keep looking. If you don't, people will not care. I mean, it's like an album, right? I mean, I kind of I treat books like albums and like batting orders. It's like you gotta. Sorry, that's very confusing. But if you don't show people crap, you know what crap is. People are not going to be interested in that picture. Please don't show it because it's not going to help your career. If you keep showing things that are like a little different, a little bit, it shows that you're the photographer. I mean, like there's a lot of, you can go online and just see like 100 people's art. Like, and I'll say this about just portraiture. Landscape's a little bit different. Like not like landscape, like beautiful, colorful sunset scenes, which I love. And I posted one today, but that gets boring quick. With portraiture, everyone's using like the same lights. Everyone's making similar portraits. So how do you set yourself apart from that? And it's just like kind of thinking, I mean, it took me 3 years to kind of figure out that I would be able to use colored lights to do it. I mean, I made terrible photographs for 3 years. And then one day I made one decent one and I was like, oh, that could be something. So I just started to work with that. So it was like that stuff leads to, of course, the other thing is spend 500. I mean, it's hard to tell you to spend money when you just spent like $100 billion on college. But if you spend $500 on applying to shows every year around the world, then you're going to get some stuff. I mean, you can mark that percentage every time. Like if you're making a consistent effort to apply for awards, that you should do that. Apply for awards. What is it like residencies? If you don't have, if you can, I couldn't do residency because I had a day job. So I've done 2 residencies in the last 2 years. Those are the first 2 residencies I've applied for, and I got both. But that's really lucky. I mean, like I went my whole career without having a residency program. So yeah, apply for residencies, apply for shows at all the nonprofit organizations around this country. There's hundreds. There's like, open calls that aren't from nonprofits are a little bit more sketched out. Not all of them, but some of them, you want to be careful. You should look at who won the awards before. Do you respect their choices? All that kind of like little research work. Doing that research and making photographs is all I can tell you to do. I mean, that's like, if you do those 2 things, you'll be fine. Keep making the photographs after you do the research, and then you'll be fine. But if you don't make photographs, then, nothing will ever happen to you.
Juliet is next.
First of all, I just want to say thank you again. I know everyone has been thanking you, but this has really been probably my favorite lecture for this semester. And I'm kind of just curious how you discovered your appreciation for bookmaking and is it more so in the layout or is it in the physical object or, how does that relate to your personal photography? Like, do you have a hierarchy of, you like shooting your personal work and then making books with people and then shooting other people's work, or how would you rank that?
I think that I like bookmaking because it gives access to people, or it gives access to artists, and it gives access to buyers or people, collectors, in a way that prints can never do. I mean, prints just cost too much money. Um, People still, I mean, $100 is too much money, right? Like even if I was selling prints for $100, most people still wouldn't be able to afford that, and I understand that. So if I can make something that costs $28, I won't make. I mean, it's not like we're making profit off the books. I make them because I want to make them, and profit, profit. My friend makes these bags and shirts and everything. He's Deadbeat Club, and it says there is no money in books, and that is the truth. So it's about accessibility. I want people to have access to art, and that's why we make books. It's as simple as that. With my own work, I think that after I've been working on something for 8 or 10 years, I'd like to put it in one place that can be owned by somebody, or that somebody would want to have, and that's a book. That can't be prints. No one can put 50 prints on the wall. Even if I gave you a box of 50 prints for $40, which would be a loss for me, you still wouldn't put the 50 prints on the wall. So I might as well make a beautiful, compact book. So that's what we do. I mean, realistically, I think about it like this. If we make, like, I'm surrounded by books. I mean, all I have in this house is just books everywhere. You can make a small little book, 7 by 9 inches, 100, can make 100 copies of that. It will cost $1,000. That means it's $10 a copy, which means if you sell it for 20, you can make all your money in 50 books, and you have 50 to sell for profit. Or you sell 10 at $100 with a print, you made all your money to make the book, and you have 90 to sell for profit at $20, which means you have $1,800 if you can sell 100 books. So this is the numbers that I think about all the time, and like, that is how we make books with people. If we can sell some, we will make it. Or if I like it, usually it's like I'm jealous of the work and I wish that I made it myself, and that is why we make the books.
Thank you.
There are a couple questions in the chat about the books and the artists. Jarvis, did you want to go?
Yeah, hold on, get my video back. Yeah, I had a question because you were naming a number of artists. I was trying to write these things down, but just you were going like in a really swift way, which is fine. But how will we be able to get a list of these artists that you have mentioned that you work with?
Every book, even if it's sold out, exists on my website, kgpnyc.com. And you can see the history of what we've done almost in order. I mean, minus the fact that some are available, and then the bottom of the page is just all the sold out stuff. Mm-hmm. Usually with the sold out work and some of the ones that are available, we try to put the whole book online so you can see every page. I've not been really adamant about keeping that up just because I haven't had time, but most of the books are in full online, so you can check all that stuff out.
I went to SVA for 1 year in 1980, so I can say I'm a dropout of SVA. I'm a visual artist. I do photography. I do painting. Who do you use? Like, what book company are you using? Because I've had this idea of like maybe doing a retrospective of work of mine in a book form. That way people would buy it, and I'm seeing you put all these tasty books together. Who are you using that's not like, you put some money into it, but then people are at least paying for the publication and then getting your name out there? Who would you suggest?
I work with about 3 or 4 different presses consistently. In America, Brilliant Graphics out of Pennsylvania is a pretty good press I usually make digital offset books with them, which are, digital offset and offset are 2 things we can talk about, but that's a whole nother lecture. Digital offset, they're very similar. Most people wouldn't know the difference. I would know the difference, but most people would not know the difference between those 2 types of books. And digital offset's a little faster. Offset, it's coming from overseas usually, because offset in America is way too expensive. So if you're making under 200, maybe under 300 copies of something, you usually want to go with the digital offset machine, because there will be no waste, which means it will cost you less. When you turn on an offset printer, there's actually like no way to turn it off in time. So there's 250 is low. They're going to make extras because they can't turn off the machine fast enough usually the machines are making thousands and thousands of books at a time, so they work that fast. I mean, they could print 250 pages of your one book of your book, and like they turn on that machine, it'll be on for like a half an hour with your project, and they want to keep that machine on for 16 hours straight or something like that. So that's why digital offset's good here in America. So Brilliant Graphics is one. There's a company in Montreal, which is pretty inexpensive because the Canadian exchange rate is awesome for Americans. So that one is what I use for smaller digital projects. Like A Setting Sun was made in Canada at a place named, now it's called Graphiscan, Graphiscan out of Montreal. And I talked to a dude named Richard Buchanan up there, and he's really good to me. He sent me, like a long time ago, he sent me like 100 pieces of paper and said, you can print on all these papers, you choose one, and then we can print the book on those. So you know that a press will give you anything you want. If you say you want to work with a press, tell them that you want the papers, and they'll send you samples. I mean, I have a full row of just sample papers. So I use those two here, and in Europe I use a company named, well, I use a dude as an in between with companies that I can't speak to because they're in like Latvia and I don't speak Latvian. So, or like another country where I don't speak the language. So I talked to a dude named Martin who used to work at Odi, which is an Icelandic press that I used to use, but they don't make hardcover. But I can keep doing this. Like it's just like, so Martin in Europe, and then another company named SYL, SYL, out of Barcelona is where we've made most of our recent books there. But we mix it up just based on pricing, based on how long it's going to take each press to make the book, if they can print on the paper that we want, all that stuff. So it depends. It depends on your budget, really. I mean, if you have a budget and 100 people to sell a book to, you should make 300 and then know your budget. You know.
Okay, great. Thank you. The photographs are outstanding, off the hook, and very inspiring. I do photography on Staten Island of the ferry and stuff. So
Hey,
I totally appreciate it all. So thank you so much.
Thanks for being here.
You're welcome.
Hi, Chris. Thanks. I really enjoyed listening to you and seeing your work. And I don't know, this question kind of comes out of the blue. I'm just curious how you think about selfies. And I mean, because the nature of the photography that you do and the photography that you publish, it feels to me like really somehow very different from all of the selfies that people post. But in another way, it seems kind of continuous with it, in that you're putting a lot of stuff out in the world. Yeah. You know, a lot of different.
What is your definition of selfie?
I haven't thought about it. I guess it's when someone holds the phone and takes a picture of themselves, and often the background or the pose is an important feature of the photograph.
I don't actually know what your question is, but I don't care. Make any picture you want. If it's good, it's good. Like, you can make a great selfie, I guess. I mean, my sister makes, like, she doesn't make selfies because I think that there's a difference between selfies and self-portraits. Selfies are definitely when you're like holding it and photographing yourself. And yes, that gets cheesy real quick, but mostly a self-portrait would be like you photographing yourself, but you're using a tripod, or my sister just using her boyfriend for the last 5 years to make the photographs for her. I mean, that's like a little different. That's just a self-portrait, right? So I make self-portraits. I try to make a self-portrait of myself at least once or twice a year so that I can see how old that I've gotten. And yeah, so it's a little different. I think that self-portraits are great, and I think that selfies are fleeting.
Thank you. That's really helpful.
I mean, I had a quick other question, which was about like, you know, you mentioned that you didn't think of yourself as a photojournalist. You didn't think, we talked some about sort of like political photographer doesn't fit you either. Like, why not those terms? And then kind of, is there like a kind of positive term in which you think of your work more generally?
I don't know, man. Terms are weird. It's like no, I don't think of myself in a certain like realm of this photography thing. Artist is good. You can just call me an artist. That's good enough. I think that we usually don't work with photojournalists or the name like that. You know, fine art photography is a stupid name. I don't think anybody should ever call themselves that. That's dumb. It doesn't mean anything. Photojournalist is really like putting yourself in a little tiny box in a big world. Artist is like, you keep it open. You can do some photojournalistic style work. You can do some portraiture. You can do some still lifes. You can photograph babies. I mean, like, you can do a whole bunch of different things if you just are an artist, but don't put yourself in any boxes. I think boxes are just like, They're like made for boxing people. So I think, you know, usually the projects that I'm like interested in myself and with working with other people on fall between like photojournalism and totally conceptual, which, you know, those two things are like, I'm uninterested in these things as part of my practice, meaning my practice as my own art and the like the art that we work with in books. We want to fall in between photojournalism and conceptual art. We want something that is telling a story, but not a direct story. And that's where I think our press lies. And that's where the work I want to make. You make your own story with this photograph. I mean, I don't want to tell you what to think of this. I don't want to show you like, I don't want to show you the protests in Richmond. I want to show you what happened at that protest after the fact, or, you know, like that. That's the difference, I think, for me. Fall in between, and then you can't be boxed. Maybe, I don't know. People still box you in. I mean, like, there's no way people don't think I'm a photojournalist now after like National Geographic shit.
I'll definitely say that's the vibe that I got from the post, which it was kind of a happy accident. Like I saw it come up on my Instagram feed kind of right after that email came out that you were talking with us, and it seemed very exciting. So, I mean, I guess it's a good thing and a bad thing, but I like that you're not boxing yourself in. I also kind of thought of creative as like a good label for you, because then it's even more out there, not even just related to art.
Yeah, we can just call me my name. That would be the best. I don't care about the titles. Like, that's enough.
Any
Was
last
that a movie?
questions?
Call Me by My Name. Wasn't that a movie? No.
It was, and a
By Your
novel.
Name?
Call Me by Your Name. Yeah.
That's right. Never mind. That's a whole.
Cool. Looks like we're winding down. Unless anyone has the last question, then I'll be the one to do the thank you. Thank you, Chris. Thanks so much for coming out on Friday night. Really great lecture. My PSA is that this is our last lecture of the semester, but we will be back next semester. Mark your calendars for February the 5th. Chris Bedford from the Baltimore Museum of Art, who's just been in some hot water over deaccessioning artworks, is going to come speak to us on February the 5th. We also are going to have a visit from Claywoman, a 500 million year old alien, for one of our lectures, and Samir Gandesha, who's a critical theorist up in Canada. So stay tuned for the spring. February 5th is our first one. Thanks again, Chris, so much for the evening.
Did you say that you're having a guy that like the person at a museum that deaccessioned something and got in trouble?
Yeah.
Yeah, tell him that he's the man. Tell him that, like, that
well, you should come.
Not be getting in trouble for getting rid of that expensive bullshit. You're like, this is like, I would sell any Picasso for $300 million to keep my staff employed. Screw that game. Like, no, sell it. Get these people employed, get people working. If you can get $200 million for a painting, you get it. And you have people working at your museum for 20 years. Like, this is not some like game that the rich get to play. Like, not anymore. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Tell him I said that.
Totally agree. I will tell him you said that, and you should come and you can say it to him.
Great. I mean, I'll yeah, I'll do that. It depends on the work. I have to see what he did. I'm just talking shit right now, but like,
yeah, you're good. You're good. I totally agreed. I mean, we're in a crisis, and you got to set your priorities. Have a great holiday. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see everybody soon.
Peace, y'all. Thanks for having me.